Alright, today we will talk about properties of squares. And a square, as we'll find out, is actually if the rectangle and the rhombus were to have a baby together, that will be a square. In short, square has properties of parallelograms. It has all the properties of a rectangle. It has all the properties of a rhombus. And that makes our very special square. So, here we go. In a square, opposite sides are parallel. Opposite sides are congruent. Opposite angles are congruent. Consecutive angles are supplementary. And diagonals bisect each other. So these are all properties of a parallelogram. Okay? Then properties of a rectangle tells us it has 4 right angles, and that diagonals are congruent. So that's the 2 properties of a rectangle down here. Next, it has properties of a rhombus. It has 4 congruent sides. Diagonals are perpendicular. And diagonals bisect opposite angles. So it has these 3 properties of a rhombus. So let's go ahead and make our symbols. Opposite sides are parallel. So opposite sides are parallel. Opposite sides are congruent. More specifically, all 4 sides are congruent. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposite angles are congruent. This angle with this angle. But more specifically, all 4 angles are right angles. Consecutive angles are supplementary. This angle plus this angle equals 180. Diagonals bisect each other. And more specifically, the diagonals are congruent, which means what we end up with is all these 4 segments. 1, 2, 3, 4 are congruent. Alright. 4 right angles, diagonals congruent, 4 congruent sides, diagonals are perpendicular. So this is actually 90 degrees in there. And diagonals bisect opposite angles. Which means this is a 90-degree angle being bisected, which makes this 45, that 45. All of those are 45-degree angles. So there you have properties of a square. Now, the minimum definition of a square is a quadrilateral with 4 congruent sides and 4 congruent 90 degrees each angles. So it combines definition of a rectangle, 4 right angles, 4 congruent angles, because 360 divided by 4 equals 9, so these 4 are congruent. Let's add that note. Congruent. They're specifically right angles. And property of a rhombus. Four sides are congruent. 4 congruent sides. Alright, so let's do some examples. Example 1, AED is 5x plus 5. And we know from our properties that's actually a right angle, which means 5x plus 5 equals 90. And solve for x from here. Example 2, BAC is 5x. And we know from our properties this is a 90-degree angle that's bisected, meaning it's actually 45. So 5x equals 45. And solve for x. Example 3. MH is 8. Find AH. This one's a bit trickier. Let's walk through our properties. We know MH is 8. We know MA is also 8. Left side congruent with the top side. Really, all 4 sides are 8. And then from here, we have a triangle. More specifically, we know this is a right angle. That's a right triangle. And in a right triangle, to find AH, which is now the hypotenuse, we have the Pythagorean theorem is in work here. 8 squared plus 8 squared equals this hypotenuse c squared. And example 4, MS is 3. AS is 3. Find the perimeter. So we know this is 3, we know this is 3, and we know this is a right angle, which means to find MA, one of the sides, again, we have a right angle with 2 sides, that's 3 squared plus 3 squared equals x squared. And you solve for x, gets you one side. Perimeter means I have all 4 sides, which means I do this, plus this, plus this, plus this to find my final answer. But the basic idea is, in a square, you know that is a right angle over here. So there you have properties of a square.